What does it look like to be an inclusive leader? DEI is not a program. This is a way of doing business. Imagine if you feel loved at work. When people are presented with trying to change, they resist. Legacy is extremely important. We are both a human pharma and animal health organization. This is an amazing organization. We're transforming lives. I'm a champion of people and I'm a humanist. Oh my God, who wouldn't want to be part of something like that? It's complex to try to change mindsets. That creates a lot of burnout of their employees. Man, it's so simple to smile, so simple to say to someone, good morning.
Today's special guest is Rafael Fantauzzi. Rafael is the Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer at Boehringer Ingelheim, one of America's largest companies. He shares some absolute gold, and it comes from a wealth over 3 decades of knowledge in working in large companies like American Airlines, IKEA, COORS, for those that like their beer. And he sits on some incredible boards. But he's going to share one incredible thing that I think you will just be blown away by. It's the one thing that if we embrace it, it will transform our lives and the lives of the people around us. Sit back and enjoy the show. Rafael, a huge welcome to the Lead on Purpose podcast.
Thank you, James. Happy to be here.
Oh, absolute pleasure to have you here. Look, the work that you do is so important, and we're going to get into talking about that work. But firstly, Boehringer Ingelheim. Tell me a little bit about what you do and the scale that you guys do it at.
Well, we are a German company based out of Ingelheim, Germany, and we are both a human pharma and animal health organization. So we work in both of those areas. We are constantly developing solutions for very complex therapeutic areas of the healthcare pipeline and the healthcare issues of both humans and animals. And so we, especially unmet needs that are extremely important, and we kind of specialize on that versus issues that sometimes we all have as human beings in the healthcare and healthcare inequities that exist in the world.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And look, your career history, I've looked through some of the amazing things that you've done and companies you've worked for, COORS and IKEA, Inca Group. Phenomenal. What drew you to Boehringer Ingelheim? What was it about their North Star that you're like, yeah, I want to be a part of that?
First of all, this is an amazing organization. And because I have been in so many different companies, plus in the civil rights and advocacy realm, what attracted me is the humanistic values. This is a people-centric organization. I'm at a point in my career in which legacy is extremely important, and making a difference, because I'm a champion of people and I'm a humanist. I needed to make sure that I find myself in an organization that aligns with my values of trying to make the world better. Especially when it comes to complex issues like health equity and health access and unmet needs and on certain things that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And then when you add also the animal health, animals are a member of people's families. And it might even be their only families. So to me, this was a no-brainer by identifying a purpose-driven, humanistic organization. We're privately owned. It also conveys those values of trust, of respect, of empathy that are so crucial for an organization to make a difference in the world.
That's beautiful. And a lot of the larger organizations, we don't hear a lot of this trust, respect, empathy, humanistic. We don't hear those things. We hear quarterly revenue returns, how we performing. And I love that you're going, actually, the result of those quarterly returns are because we're looking after our people and trusting them and equipping them and empathizing with them. You talk about humanistic. For someone that's unfamiliar with that term, what does that mean to you?
Well, because we are privately owned, we're not bound by, in the U.S. by the Wall Street, walls that they have in. We can plan things more long term as a privately owned organization to be able to maybe even tackle things that the ones that are driven by their capitalism and even their individualism, you know, have to guide. Those are their guiding principles. Our guiding principles are really focused on very humanistic and core to the human journey experience. And that to me is transformational. We're transforming lives, and oh my God, who wouldn't want to be part of something like that? At least I know I want to.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Now, Rafael, DEI, that's what a lot of us have been used to hearing. Some companies are starting to dip their toes in and try to embrace it, try to figure it out. But actually, DICE, DICE, talk me through what that means, why you think it's important to have the C in there, and how it can impact our people.
Well, as a company that it's people centric, it is important that the culture of the company, first of all, is embracing of all of the differences and the innovation that we're trying to attract. And so having the C as part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion acronyms it's actually more high level, and the impact that we make, it's really at the culture element of the company, which is sometimes where some companies struggle with because they're trying to bring the diversity, equity, and inclusion philosophies and principles into an organization in which the culture, it's more about the performance. It's more about, the bottom line. And in some cases, that creates a lot of burnout of their employees. So as a people-centric organization, having us to also be making sure that the culture is the right culture for the people that we're trying to attract, for our patients, for our suppliers, for our customers, and as a company brand, I think it's extremely important, and and a great element to always have as part of this efforts, because DEI is not a program. This is a way of doing business. And that's where sometimes people miss the mark. This is a new and different way of doing business.
Incredible. And I want to dive into DEI as a way of doing business. But I was delivering a keynote. It was towards the end of last year. It was a leadership keynote, and there was Q&A at the end. And I always love Q&A because you never know what's coming. But one person said, hey, during the keynote, you talked about diversity, and you talked about how it can actually help the company at all levels, including at the revenue level. And I was like, well, yes, there's been several studies done that show a company that's more diverse has significantly better profits. That's researched. And they tried to argue with me on this, and they said, look, it shouldn't be about diversity. It should simply be about if that person's best for the job, they get the job, and we shouldn't concern ourselves with inclusion and all of that silly stuff, is what he said. So we had quite an interesting dynamic conversation back and forth. And I met with him afterwards and explained to him how important it is that we encourage getting different thoughts and different people to the table, every table. So for yourself, what do you experience when you visit companies, or if you're sitting on boards of companies that lack diversity, equity, and inclusion? What's the potential consequence if we say, that stuff doesn't matter? What might happen?
Well, I'm going to give you a tangible example. That I think hopefully people will see this point about the importance of DEI in the business results. One large group that it's growing in the United States is the Hispanic community. Of course, they come from 17 different countries, so they're all different. They're not monolithic. So you can't treat an Argentinian the same way that you treat a Spaniard, or that you treat a Puerto Rican, or that you treat a Mexican American. And so by not understanding, and you can begin to understand the nuances around that specific consumer demographic, is by tapping into your talent so
Mhm.
that they can guide you and inform you and provide you the how to, in a very respectful way, build trust so that without that trust, people don't do brand adoption. If you do not, focus, using your talent to be able to tap into that market, you won't gain that market. And let me give you the right numbers for that. Right now, the Hispanic market, as it is, which is only around 19% of the population in the United States, carry a $1.7 trillion GDP, which actually just surpassed the entire GDP of the UK.
Wow.
So as a business, would you ignore the UK market?
Hell no.
So why are you ignoring the Hispanic market? That is the sustainability. So what we are trying to do at the same time as creating an inclusive workplace, because this is really about inclusion, not just diversity. An inclusive workplace is we're preparing my company, Boehringer Ingelheim, for the sustainability of the future by them being able to understand the nuances of people that are their employees, their patients, their suppliers, and a community partner.
Mm. It's so inspiring. And if we break each of those down, how would you define diversity and then equity and then inclusion? So for someone who's going, I'm still trying to get my head around what they mean, to you, what do they mean?
Well, diversity means everyone. We're all diverse. But the problem is that people sometimes get hang up on the two things that mostly most companies or everybody's talking about, or even governments sometimes want to know: gender and race and ethnicity. But guess what? You and I are more than just that. We have cultures, we have geographic diversity, we have cognitive diversity, we have physical diversity, physical ability diversity, we have race, religion, politics, morals, values. When you begin to look at individuals for their entire uniqueness, you will see that making sure that those individuals are feeling respected, are feeling valued in your organization, they're going to bring all of that uniqueness in that train of thought that actually galvanizes innovation.
Mm.
That's the value of diversity. Inclusion is really making sure that both people feel that they belong in the organization, and that's the culture. People have to
Mm.
match the culture of the organization so that they can feel a high sense of belonging, but also learning to value the uniqueness of each individual beyond just two dimensions of diversity. That is inclusion. And ultimately, equity is making sure that in the organization and also with your patients and your customers, you are providing people the opportunities that they need as individuals to have access to success,
Mhm.
jobs, opportunities, solutions to medical needs that they might have if they don't have. So that's where companies, if they work in equity in that frame, they will actually improve their sustainability and also at the same time build their brand.
It's massive. You're such a mission driven messenger. You're so passionate about this. I can see it. I can feel it. What led you to this? What in your life led you to go, that's the line of work that I want to commit my life to?
It's interesting because this happened actually when I was at American Airlines in the 1990s. That I'm aging myself there. Um, but unbeknownst to me, because I actually studied engineering and I was actually a systems analyst working in the pension department, and we had to start our initiatives because of crisis. But I'm born and raised in Puerto Rico, and
Mm.
we are a territory of the United States. And to this day, it's personal, the fact that we are still considered second class citizens of the United States. And unbeknownst to me, I had that fire in me when to be able to first of all advocate for my people, but then become a champion of others,
Mm.
which then became a larger call for me, and something that I said, you know what, if I can do this for and try to work to equalize opportunity for my family and the members of the Puerto Rican community, I can do it for everybody else as well. And why not? And 32 years later, here I am.
It's incredible. You've stayed in it the long game. Very few do.
I know, sometimes it's very taxing because this is very complex. But I stay thinking about if I make the difference of one person's life, that is rewarding for me.
It's incredible. And this is the way I look at this. This is your time in the sun, and the sun is shining on you right now, and you're here to do something that's very mission driven. So before the sun sets on your professional life, what is there that you're like, I've got to do that, or I want to inspire people to do this? Is there anything specific?
Well, first I want to jump off a plane, and parachute. That is on my bucket list. I've never done it. My dad was a military man, and he was a paratrooper, and I would like to have that same experience that he does because he is my hero. I do what I love to do every day. Every day, I'm inspired by every individual that I meet when they share their experience, when they share their challenges. So I can't say that there's a big thing that I need to do out there that I'm looking for. The little things matter. They do. People matter. And every day I try to tell everyone what you say and what you do, especially in our company, matters. And I like to transform people through drops so that those drops create the ripples that we need to have movement in status quo.
And when you say that, it makes it feel so achievable. It makes it feel tangible that it's actually small things, and the small things, by the sounds of it, are the big things. So how do we, at any company level, whether it's a very small company, whether it's a massive multinational, how do we start embracing this idea of DEI? Where's the starting point?
First, tapping into the passion, tapping into the understanding the culture. And I think that if companies look at their culture statements and what do they really want to envision this company to be, and inspire folks to bring their uniqueness and their authentic self to the workplace, but also elevate the volume of who they are. Because at the end of the day, that's how we are being able to transform the lives of people that are going through, very, very, sometimes very tough medical issues. And so, what we do matter. Wherever you're at, I tell my children, I don't care what you do in life, just do what you love because success will come.
Such great advice. And it's so true. I mean, to me, that's the epitome of leading your life on purpose, is like, do what you love doing and keep doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's my north. And I've been very lucky in my journey. And of course it has not been pink, correct? Yeah. It has not been rosy, because there are times in which things get, very complicated because it's complex to try to change mindsets, but it can be done.
Yeah. For a moment, let's go and reflect on that, because often when I'm chatting with people, we hear about some of their big successes and what they're doing, but often what has got them there has been the tough stuff they've had to overcome. So has there been a moment in the last decade or two that you've really seen as a moment of struggle that you've overcame and you've learned a lot from it? Anything come to mind?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, let's be real. What happened to George Floyd several years ago, and that inspired the global knowledge of the Black Lives Matter movement, was very transformational, of course, because we were under lockdown as well. And we were all in our own households all over the world, having to consider our own mortality. And so we go, is this the world that we want for ourselves? And so that of course was transformational. But let me be very clear. Those things happen every day. They're happening all over the world. So that was a symbolic milestone because the world got to see in very tangible way what we are doing to each other. But that's happening every day. when you cut somebody off on the road because you want to get there faster, when it might not necessarily look significant, but we're not being humanistic. We're not being, to each other. And so, sometimes all of those things, those little things frustrate me as well, because I'm like, man, it's so simple to smile. It's so simple to say to someone, good morning. It's so simple to say, can I get you a cup of coffee? It's so simple to say, how are you doing? And we don't do that enough. And I wish that's what my call to action to people is. Because then one day you're not going to be in a good headspace, and you would really want someone to at least to know that somebody cares.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting you ask, you say that people don't really ask, how are you doing? But sometimes when they do, and they say, how are you doing? They don't actually want a proper response. They want a good and then move on. And so they're not willing to listen to how you truly are. I was chatting with Nabila Extabilan. So she was a CPO up at Walmart, Canada.
She was my boss.
What?
Nabila
Really?
was my boss in the US. Yes.
Why did I not do my research and figure that out?
I love Nabila. I'm so glad you had her in the show.
She's amazing. Phenomenal. Yes. She really challenged my thinking on a couple of fronts. So we were chatting, and one was the, how are you? And I said, good. And she went, how are you really? I went, good.
Yeah.
She went, I'm in no hurry. Tell me how you really are in this moment. I was like, well, actually, it was a tough morning. Struggled to get out the door to get my son to school. The dogs were going nuts, a bit stressed. Traffic was insane. Like, I'm just starting to come right now. She went, okay, thanks for being honest and sharing. So that was the first thing. She taught me how to actually respond. Secondly, she started challenging me, and she said, James, tell me about your friends. I said, what do you want to know? She just tell me about them. How many friends you generally hang out with, what they look like, where they're from, what they're interested in, background, ethnicity, age. So I started telling her, and she went, okay, I see a pattern. I said, well, I don't see a pattern. They're all very different. She went, well, the pattern is that they're actually all kind of like you. And the majority of them look like you. They're similar age, similar gender, background. She said, you're living in an echo chamber. And essentially what you're putting out there, you get that reflected back, this confirmation bias. And she said there's a scotoma. You've got this mental blind spot. And the reason it's there is because you're around James 2.0, James 3.0, and so on. You don't have someone who had a different upbringing and background to challenge you on your views of the world. And I was so grateful. I was a little taken aback initially, but so grateful. And I set upon for the next few years getting around people much older, younger, different background, different skin color. And it's been the most phenomenal experience. Even on the show here, if you look at my first year, in terms of who I interviewed, they were 95% male and probably 80% white. And I didn't intentionally do that, but that's my internal bias that sat there. It's like, they're similar to me. I want to interview them. This past few years, it's incredible diversity. I learned so much more. My listeners give me much better feedback because they're learning so much more. So Nabila has been inspirational. I want to ask you, what did you learn from Nabila that's stuck with you?
Oh my God, I wish you would have been in some of the conversations that we had together, because we're both very, very alike when it comes to thinking about that, and how we both, when we worked at IKEA, were trying to upward mentor the organization to kind of begin to see the world that way. One thing that I learned from Nabila that still sticks with me is she used to write this acronym called WAIT in her papers when she would be at a meeting, and that meant, why am I talking?
I love it.
And I use that a lot because I like to talk, because I like to be inspirational, but at the same time, when I talk, I miss an opportunity to accept your gift. And let me explain a little bit more about that. I believe everyone has a gift to give to everyone. And sometimes we are the ones that cheat ourselves from accepting that gift. me getting to know you and know who you are and understanding some of your challenges, being empathic. But with being empathic, by the way, requires, and this is where the bias is, requires that if you want to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, you have to take your shoes off first. And people forget to take their shoes off first to be more empathic. But I learned that from Nabila, that I say, listen, be a better listener. 2 ears, 1 mouth, let's listen. So that acronym always stuck with me, and it's something that I still use to this day. And actually smile every time I write it on a piece of paper, because Nabila's image comes to my mind. And to me, she has been an inspirational leader. And it's someone that I'm very grateful, because she gave me that opportunity to come into IKEA and do transformational work there.
It's incredible. Yeah, what an amazing leader. And I'm sure she would say exactly the same thing about you.
I would hope so.
I would say. So why am I talking? I think that's so important. And what's interesting is my team will often give me statistics on the podcast. And they'll say, James, in that podcast, you spoke 3% of the time. I say, okay, good. And then another podcast, James, you spoke 43% of the time. I said, okay, that's not so good. So I do believe that when I'm listening, I'm learning. And when I'm talking, I can't learn when I talk. So I really appreciate the WAIT acronym. That's really powerful.
I believe so.
Now, 2024, what does that, for you, when you think about your company and your people, what do you see ahead? What are we heading into? Headwinds, tailwinds?
Both. I think that we're going to have both. This is very cyclical work, and some of the things and some of the challenges that you hear in the news here and there, the pushbacks around DEI, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, use it to wash the car. I've been in this realm for long enough to understand that, when people are presented with trying to change, they resist. But that's because sometimes our work is presented out of fear. I believe we're presenting our work out of love. And we are actually even beginning to talk about love in the workplace, which is very rare. And imagine if you feel loved at work. What would you do if you feel love at work? And of course, not the kind of love that makes you have a conversation with HR. That's not what we want to do here, but it's love for each other, because we are appreciating. I appreciate who you are, and who you are is an incredible piece of this puzzle that makes us the day-to-day workplace. And so we are transforming our organization in the U.S. by adding some additional infrastructure that actually we have leaders from our business units really engage into how do we implement the DEI principles as part of our day-to-day business operation. And we know that that's going to transform our organization. And it does take time. That's another thing. Managing people's expectation. Change takes time. And sometimes you will go 2 steps forward. Sometimes you go 3 steps back, but you get up and you go back again, and you continue the journey, because it is a journey. It is not a destination. And we're preparing the organization, Boehringer, for growth. And that means DEI has a responsibility, and DICE has a responsibility to help the organization with our elements of diversity, inclusion, culture, and equity.
Incredible. And I hear that you're going to, behaviorize or ritualize the DEI components. What does that look like? Again, if someone's listening going, hey, how do we do that? What are some examples of being able to do that on a daily basis?
Building the infrastructure, number one, to support by providing leaders. What does it look like to be an inclusive leader? And what, on a day-to-day basis. And by the way, these are the tools and the practices. When you're not understanding something, the power of the pause could actually provide you, that's just one little tool that sometimes, if we use that in the workplace a little more, first of all, it provides you the opportunity for you to reflect. Am I putting any biases on this decision? Hiring or promoting, or even engaging your team or engaging others as you're trying to move the needle forward, because you have to influence, that learning of the when to be a politician and when to be an advocate hat, but also taking the opportunity on a day-to-day basis before you start a meeting to ask people, how are you doing? And give them the opportunity to share. That way, everybody can understand that, by the way, I'm not alone in this journey. I'm here together with folks that are here to support each other, and that we can be vulnerable enough to be ourselves, and then tackle the challenges of the day to day.
It's incredible. I feel like we need you to jump on a plane and come to New Zealand. There's so much division now around Maori culture, which is people who essentially are native to New Zealand. And then with the new mentality and the new way of operating, there's so much division right now. And the way you present it is logical. It makes sense. It's from a place of human to human, removing bias. It's really powerful. But change, as you said, change is scary. Change, we resist it. Why do you believe at a human level we resist change?
Well, it's a natural instinct. We're human beings, and we have natural instincts to create bias. Bias has been a great tool for us to survive. So some of those things are part of the human, who we are as human beings. And also the two sentiments of fear and love. That's how I feel, that there's only those two feelings in life, because I can actually put every situation in one of those two, categories. And, but we have a decision. We can make the decision from once we grow up, when we were babies, we were very curious, correct? Because everything is new. And then suddenly we switch to being judgmental. Guess what? We can teach our brains to also become more curious again, and to tweak those levers that we have, and to be able to show more of that curiosity, or more of that humanistic element, because it's in all of us. None of the things that I talk about are things that no one has. We all have. And by the way, we don't have a limit. We don't have a limit on love. We don't have a limit on fear. We don't have a limit on curiosity, on empathy. We put those limits on ourselves. So I think that sometimes we undersell our own selves.
I love what you're saying there, that there's an ability for us individually to tap into this illimitable amount of joy, love, compassion, connection. It's there, but it doesn't need to be given to us. It doesn't need to be taught to us. We just need to uncover it. We need to peel back the layers and let it out.
At Boehringer, one of the things that we are beginning to do with our people leaders is embrace this new concept of care, which is curiosity, accountability, responsibility, and empathy. Those are, to me, the four elements that that will make you an intrinsic, inclusive leader. And so it is as simple, and once again, it's another one of those things in which we say, we're not teaching anything new. You've been curious in your life. You've held others and yourself accountable. You are obviously here, so you're a responsible individual, and you have been empathic in life. So how do we ignite it again? How do we reignite it? We're not teaching you a new skill. You don't have to go get an MBA in care. Yeah. And imagine the value that it has, because the acronym, and boy, do I have a marketing mind in mind as well. The acronym also aligns with who we are as a company. We care for people, and our mission in our business is to care for patients and their animals and folks that are going through some health issues and those disparities. And so it's very natural.
We need more companies like Boehringer, that's for sure. It's incredible. It's amazing. And just before we wrap up, a couple of last questions for you. So I believe that as leaders, we have a leadership lid, and the lid is here. And we can only lead people to the level of our lid. We can only welcome people, inspire people to this level. So, and our companies will stop here too if our lid is here. So we need to constantly expand and increase our lid, our capabilities, our wisdom, our awareness. So what do you do personally, day in, day out, or year on year, to lift your leadership lid so that you can be more aware, that you have more skill sets? What's your go-to to develop yourself personally?
I was very lucky that I decided to elevate my own and upskill my own skills by doing a master's in leadership at Georgetown University.
Well
And
done.
one of the things that I learned, simple concepts, as the most important tool of a leader is listening. Leaders miss a lot of things when they don't listen. And leaders are signal senders every day. Every day you can do something and somebody's watching and somebody's looking at you, and they will model those things, especially folks that you don't even know that they're looking at you to model those things. So it's a day-to-day journey. But for me, I continue to learn what others in my industry is doing, creativity, and I don't put a lid on my learning. I think that's also a something that we just need to be thinking that we learn until we cannot anymore, and so frameworks that work, things that are there that are being coming from academia on how to improve a workplace or how to improve a business. I think that on any of those things that I can learn, it's going to be something that I'm going to be curious about and want to see if I can at least become a little bit knowledgeable about it.
I love it. It's like a real sense of mastery that you've got, this learner's mindset for life. It's really key in a leadership setting. And it's interesting you mentioned listening and signal sending. So a number of years ago in my mastermind, so I host a mastermind that's industry diverse. So leaders from all different industries. One of the leaders that joined was the former All Blacks rugby captain. So All Blacks are a New Zealand world champion rugby team. And he's very well known and very well respected. So he joined the table for 4 months. And everyone was so keen to have answers and have all the wisdom. Every week, he was the last to speak. He sat there for 2 hours, nodding, taking notes. And at the very end, when he spoke, everybody looked and listened and took notes and were inspired. About 3 months into that, what I started to notice was that signal he was sending of, you don't need to have all the answers. You need to have great questions and you need to listen. That started to impact the whole group. All of a sudden, 90% of the group were saying nothing and listening and taking notes and asking better questions. So I love that you brought that up, and it took me back to that moment of arguably one of our best leaders in the country having that exact same trait that you learned at Georgetown.
And that's an important one. Nelson Mandela also said, you as a leader, you don't necessarily have to lead from the front. Leaders can also lead from behind, and leaders also know when to follow. Yeah. And I have learned to that a lot of times I don't have to be the front and center. Actually, at Boehringer, we love to put our employees up in front. We have business resource groups in which we engage different, all of our employees from different affiliations, either race, gender, or professional affinity. And we like to put them up in front. It's because the stories are better told by the folks that are doing this on a day-to-day basis than from me. I sit there and listen, and I once again, I go, wow, how lucky I am to be here in this privileged seat to listen to what they have to say. And that's another formula for success that we have in order to create an inclusive workplace.
It's incredible. I have to say, I've spent the last decade studying Nelson Mandela and reading everything I can and meeting his family. The work that you're doing, he would be so proud of and would support it. It's incredible. Boehringer are very lucky to have you. So just one last question. I'd like you to join me. Fast forward many, many years into the future. And You are highly aware that it's your last day here on Earth, and someone very young that you care deeply for, they come into the room and they say, Rafael, how do I lead my life on purpose? What would you say to them?
Love. Love. I live in love. Live in love.
That's beautiful. I love it. Simple, powerful, deeply connected. I love it.
Life cannot be that complicated. I think we invent our own issues sometimes. So
Definitely. Well, Rafael, I want to say a huge thank you. I don't think this will be the last time we chat. I just want to say massive thanks for the work that you do. Keep doing it. Keep taking the big swings, and keep leading your life on purpose.
James, thank you very much. And it really has been an honor to be here with you. And hopefully the audience will like what we have to say. And my challenge to them is love.
Good challenge. I'll take that challenge.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed the content today, please smash that subscribe button below. And if you want to become part of my community, I've got an amazing free Facebook group. Please come and join us. The link is in the description below. And also, if you've got any questions about today's session, I'd love to know. Just comment below and I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Have the most amazing day.